Hi, Richard. What's going on?
How you doing, Joe? Everybody?
Doing pretty good. We are posted up. What do you think of our little location here?
Well, it's the mall. Pretty good. Right behind us here's a abandoned area where there used to be a business, and along the tree line there, some campsites we visited. So
I saw the tent. The tent's actually over there.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been over there.
Richard, today I want to do some story time work with you. You're a guy that's dealt with addiction and incarceration for a lot of your life, and even just recently still dealing with these two struggles. Gosh almighty, it sounds like a gunshot, but I think the car ran something over.
Something over in Pop, yeah.
Richard, you just spent 3 weeks in jail. This is a jail that I'm really familiar with. I did a lot of time in and out of this jail when I was getting in trouble. But it's 2024 right now, and I know that this jail is just a totally different world. And we were talking about that in a recent video. A lot of changes. You know, I want to hear a little of that experience, what those 3 weeks were like, any kind of memorable things. I think to myself that if I did 3 weeks in jail again, man, I would have a story for every day that I was in there. Every day's got to be an adventure. It's a zoo in there. Guys act like wild animals. It's almost like an adult Chuck E. Cheese, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of, now that I'm looking back, a lot of it kind of all runs together as far as, you know, being in there. But the one thing that kind of kicked in when I went in jail was where I was at. It was maximum 2D was the block, and it was actually where I had spent not the entire 17 months, but quite a bit of time before I went to prison back in 2018. And I was in actually the same little cell block, you know, where there's 4 bunks, and there was like 5 guys already in there. And as soon as I went in, I had because of my knee, the nurse, they gave me a bottom bunk pass. And as soon as the officer put me in the cell, you know, he let the guys know. He's like, hey, this guy's got a bottom bunk pass. Somebody's got to come off of the bottom bunk. And as you know, Joe, guys get comfortable in jail, and they don't like to climb up and down. So they kind of looked at me like, you know, F you, we're not coming off of our, you know, bottom bunks just to give up. You know, this guy looks pretty capable. So when the officer walked out, none of the guys that had the bottom bunks attempted to make any kind of effort or move to, you know, say, here you go, you can have this bunk. So basically what I did was I just said, hey guys, look, I don't want to make, you know, any ruckus in here, any problems. You know, I'll just get up on the upper bunk, which was no big deal. You know, I just go through a little bit of discomfort with my knee. But anyway.
So you got on the top bunk. You didn't take the bottom bunk?
No, well, they wouldn't give me the bottom bunk. It would have been an issue. You know, in jail like that, when you try to, you know, it's you know what it is. You know, you got certain guys that just don't want to, you know, it's their world. So anyway, I got up on the top bunk, got situated, made my mat up, my bed, and then just kind of like, you know, got a vibe for what was going on in the pod there. Of course, you know, there's a movie TV, there's a sports TV, and the sports TV's always on ESPN or basketball. Of course, this being football season, you know, we watch football games, whatnot. And then I just kind of fell into the routine of trying to find a book to read, trying to find some books. The book cart in jail, in Chesapeake jail, used to be a big 2-sided book cart full of books, all kinds of books. And now it was down to where there was only like maybe 5 books, and they were in such bad condition that they were literally unreadable. So The first thing I did was got a request slip and wrote the library/chaplain, hey, can you send me a couple books? And I didn't want to just read something random. I wanted to read something, you know, that could help me, a NA book, a Bible, or something like that. So anyway, I did end up getting a couple books. And then I just fell into the routine. But what happened the next day, getting up, you know, here's the crazy thing. Guys get so funny in jail about the sanitary part of it. The sink issue. Of course, when you take a pee, now, this is a new thing, probably for you too, is that they don't want to hear you pee. When you got to take a piss, you're peeing inside a cell with all your roommates in there, and they want you to immediately flush the toilet so they don't listen to the pee hitting the water for whatever reason. So, you know, hey, hurry up, you know, all that. So I went through that little, you know, new information change, and then it was just getting the trays, getting up in the morning, getting the breakfast trays. They bring in a cart with all the trays on it, and they call you by room. And there's 10 rooms, so they'll say room 1, and you come out, and there's one guy that'll go out and he'll get the trays, a stack of 5 or 6 or however many's in the block, the cell. But the top tray, you got 6 trays in a stack, and the guy gets them, and that top tray is whoever's carrying the trays gets them from the guy passing them out, because he's over the top of it, which I don't understand that concept of something jumping off, you know, the body and landing on the tray. So, you know, my first thing was I'm out of the cell, sitting at the table right there, and I'm like, hey, I'll just take this top tray and I'll eat right here. And the guy walks away from me. He walks in the cell and sets the trays down on the sink, and then he picks up the top tray, and then it's like, okay, you just set the trays down on the sink and by the toilet. So that kind of whole thing was like trying to figure out how they did that. Now, one day I picked up the trays because the guys weren't up yet. So when I picked up the trays, I set them down on the table, and somebody else walked up and took the top tray, and this one particular person in my cell, he's like, hey man, did you take the top tray? Did you say anything while you were carrying them? And I'm looking at him like, what are you talking about? You know, I just carried them from, you know, 6-8 feet from here to here and set them down. And he kind of flipped out because he was adamant about sanitary of you know, me carrying the tray. That top tray was mine. So that was a whole, you know, crazy thing. So what I did was right away was like, hey, you know, I'm not going to even mess with it. I'll let somebody else get them, and I'll wait till the very end, and I'll take the last tray so I don't have any issues, because I could clearly see that, you know, certain people say in jail that certain people are just who they are, maybe the color of their skin or whatever, are nasty or dirty. And of course I had, you know, my hair was long and, you know, just coming off the street, and they feel like maybe you got some, I don't know. That was an interesting issue. The other issue is the microwave.
They got a microwave in there now?
We got microwaves.
They didn't have that when I was there.
Okay, well, we got microwaves now, and that's another chaotic event. So if you want to, normally when the food comes, it's cold, or it's not hot like you would eat it at home. So they sell little plastic bowls, as you know, or whatever, and you know, put your food in the bowl and you take it over to the microwave and heat it up. At lunchtime, we get a cold meal. We get either chicken salad, they rotate it, chicken salad, peanut butter and jelly, and then bologna. Great big thick piece of, they call it sweat meat. You know that. Anyway, so guys like to cook it really good in the microwave. And then there's usually a line. Guys will get their tray and then they'll line up at the microwave to cook their bologna. So I don't like bologna. Well, I was gonna go ahead and cook it one day, and I walked up and said, you know, who's the last person in line? There was about 6-8 guys standing there, and everybody looked at me like, you know, find out for yourself. So I was like, you know, who's the last in line? So finally somebody set up and he's like, spoke up and said, hey, I'm the last guy. So after this particular guy comes out of the microwave, I go to put my food in it, and a guy walks up and says, hey, whoa, 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 I'm next. And I'm like, well, he just said he was the last guy. Well, I was already here and waiting. And so it's that's the type of thing you deal with in the jail. It's always a conflict with other inmates about the showers, you know, who had to shower or who had to shower next. I don't know if they had washers and dryers when you were there.
They did.
We got washers and dryers, and maybe you'll be taking a shower and you'll want to throw your towel and your, you know, whatever, boxers or socks, whatever you might, you know, sometimes I don't want to throw a little bit of tiny stuff in a washer and hold it up for 20 minutes. So I'll wash it out in the shower, throw it in the dryer, but then you go to, the dryer will be sitting open, you'll throw your stuff in the dryer, and as soon as you do that, somebody will come up and take it out and set it on top of the dryer and put their stuff in it. So then you come back to check on your clothes, and your clothes is sitting on top of the dryer wet, and you're like, and all those things can lead into fights and serious arguments. I've learned over the years to just let that kind of shit go. But
I'm gonna be honest with you, Richard. These last 3 weeks that you just spent in jail sounded like they were pretty tough for you.
No, they weren't tough, Joe. It was just a matter of adapting to my environment.
I don't know that I could have done it that way, though. I mean, it sounds like these dudes were definitely trying to bully you. And, you know, okay, I can understand the new rule of flushing when you piss. That certainly wasn't taking place when I was there. It just definitely makes me question, you know, was that a block-wide thing that was taking place, a jail-wide thing? Or was that just in that particular cell with those guys that you were in there with? But, you know, who's to know?
Who's to know? And I don't know. But what I have learned about jail is this, is that you have certain individuals, you have gang members, and I've learned that if you are kind of a person that is like on the outside, or you don't fit into a certain group or clique or whatever, it's best to just kind of, I don't know if, yeah, you can say getting bullied, or you can say it's being humble and avoiding confrontation, which is what I do. I'm a 58-year-old man. I have no business getting into any kind of physical confrontation.
Well, these guys have no business bullying you neither.
Well, they do it anyway. They don't care. And a lot of guys in jail, Joe, as you know, they don't care. They don't care about adding time to the time they're already going to get. They don't care about going to the hole. They don't care about that kind of stuff, to where I don't want to go to the hole or go down to what they call 87, to where it's just complete madness down there.
I spent a lot of time in the dungeon, man. 87.
You know, I have too. And
what's the other area before you? The landing.
The landing.
Yep, the landing in 87, man. The landing's worse than 87 because it's so small, but 87 is definitely the dungeon, man. That's Thunderdome down there. I was down there quite a bit. Look, let's say this. You were in 2D. 2D is a maximum security pod with with cells that are referred to as rooms. They do look like rooms. You've got 4 to 8 prisoners per room, just depending on.
Up to 10.
Or up to 10, okay.
Three bunks, which was where I was at, or 5 bunks, which hold 10. And now they have triple bunks in there.
Oh my God.
They have triple bunks, and when you're laying in the middle bunk, you can't sit up. You literally have to slide in it like you're.
Were you in a triple bunk?
No, I was on the very side where the wall is, and it was a double. Then they had a triple in the middle, and then they had another double on the other side, and the triple was full because the guy over on the other side was a young guy. He had already got his prison time, and he didn't want anybody over the top of him. He didn't want anybody above him, because that's where he kept his bowl and his cup and some laundry and some hygiene stuff, and he didn't want to move it. So anyway, there again, it's a pecking order, and it's like everybody's trying to be as comfortable as they can, which I get that. But there is no, for the most part, what I learned in jail, there is no like sacrificing anything to help the next man, to a point. I mean, I'm not going to say that that's overall, but where I was at, you know, it was that way. And then, of course, at nighttime, when they lock you down, 11 o'clock, it's a lockdown. They put you in the room, they lock the door. Of course, there's a big plexiglass window you can see out. And that's where everybody gets wound up. Nobody's really ready to go to bed except for guys like me. You know, maybe lay down and read for a little bit, or, you know, have a conversation with some guys. But the topic of conversation, as I've said before, is just nuts. And it's usually about the poker game that took place, the chess game that took place, the domino game that took place, and who won, and what this guy did, and how much money, and all that kind of stuff, and just jail, you know, politics and stuff.
Them guys are bidding, though, if those are the conversations.
They're bidding. They're doing their time, and that's what their minds are focused on, is what happened throughout the day, and then whatever kind of, you know, pokes and jokes and fun and whatever. And let me tell you what happened, where I almost got into a physical confrontation. There was a guy below me. He was a funny guy. He was pretty cool guy for the most part. And anyway, he snored really loud. So the night before, I was tapping on the bunk to try to wake him up, to let him roll over because he's snoring so loud. So anyway, the next night, I'm trying to get comfortable, and as I'm rolling over, my blanket is hanging down off the side of the bed.
That's a big no-no.
That's a big no-no, because it's hanging down, and they don't know what kind of bugs or hair or whatever's in the bunk, and it might fly onto them, and they freak out. So anyway, this other guy that sleeps in the middle bed, I've got my back, I'm facing the wall laying there, and I don't realize I realize it, my blanket is probably hanging over, but I'm trying to get comfortable and pull it and wad it and make sure it's not hanging over the side of the bed. So anyway, this guy is tugging on it, and he's tugging on it, and I don't know who's tugging on the blanket. I'm thinking it's the guy below me, but this other guy's tugging on the blanket, and then the guy below me says, "Hey man, can you get your blanket, you know, it's hanging over the edge." And all I said was, "Give me a second and I'll get it." And as soon as I said that, the guy below me said, "Hey man, you got a smart mouth." And he jumped up out of the bed, and he's like, You're getting smart." I said, "No, I'm not getting smart. I'm just trying to get comfortable here. And if, you know, it was going to give me a minute, I know it was hanging to put." So this guy wants to fight over this blanket hanging over, and I'm in the process of trying to pull it up and, you know, wrap up in it because it's so cold in the cell. And then this other guy's kind of sitting back as an instigator, kind of chuckling, because he just instigated, because he's pulling on the thing, and I'm feeling a tug on it. So that's the kind of shenanigans that go on in, you know, these blocks. And then, of course...
You guys didn't end up fighting, obviously.
No, we didn't end up fighting. One of the other guys in the block, he started making light of the situation, and he started mocking me, going, "If you give me just a fucking minute," and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Man, dude, I didn't say it that way." And they're laughing, and then the whole thing turned into a joke. And then the next morning, you know, I went to this guy, they called him Shorty, a little short guy. I said, "Hey Shorty, you know, I wasn't trying to be smart. You know, I'm in jail, I'm frustrated, and I'm trying to get comfortable. I got a bad knee, it's hurting. I'm on this thin ass mat."
You're on a top bunk, which you don't even...
Top bunk, I'm not supposed to be on, I'm supposed to be in his bunk. So I said, "Hey, I apologize if I came off like, you know, I'm being a smart ass, because sometimes I may sound that way."
You know what they refer to that as? I mean, obviously it's, you know, trying to deflate the situation and de-escalate and all, but it's copping a plea, you know, and
exactly.
Sadly, that's what you have to do if you want to stay out of the way sometimes.
You're exactly
and
right.
Not get, you know, wrapped up in the bullshit of fighting all the damn time.
Those kinds of situations can also escalate, because that one little incident will happen, and then of course you might have something happen with a tray where you breathe over the top of it, or you're staying. But here's the crazy part. The guy that was tugging on my blanket, it was his first time in jail. He was from North Carolina, and he was kind of mocking the police out driving around one day drunk, and they got him for a DUI and resisting arrest and all this crazy stuff. And he was kind of a strange character, but anyway, he had never been in jail before, and most of the rest of us had. And there was this one particular guy that he was like institutionalized. If you want to explain what that means, Joe, or I can explain it. It means that you basically, your life kind of like revolves around being in jail or in prison. So this guy's institutionalized. So it was crazy because this guy would do things, this guy from North Carolina that had never been in jail, he would do things, and the rest of the guys that were in my room would be like, dude, if you did that in a penitentiary, you'd get stabbed or you'd get checked or whatever. So as these 3 weeks went on, we all kind of got to like each other and kick it and whatever, and then at nighttime we all joked, and then we counted how many times this guy would get killed throughout the day and throughout the night. And it was like, you know, they were taking over.
How many times he would get killed if he was in prison?
If he was in prison, and they were doing the over-under thing and all that, and it was kind of comical, but at the same time it was serious because...
I mean, what are we doing with this bus?
We're backing up, Joe.
We're definitely backing up. For what purpose are we backing? Now he's going forward. You're in the middle of nowhere. There's not a car around. Anyway, sorry.
So anyway, it was kind of, but it was serious at the same time because this guy had no idea the things he was doing in our cell and in the block. Let me give you an example. He would work out all day. He was a pretty stocky guy, and he'd work out like most of the day, push-ups, and him and 2 or 3 other. And then when they would do a lockdown, like when they would lock us down at night, when a guy works out in jail or prison, the first thing he does when he's done, he's supposed to go take a shower. Now this guy didn't have any clothes, extra clothes. They don't give you extra clothes in there unless you buy t-shirts. So anyway, this guy goes to lockdown 11 o'clock and they shut the door. And the guy that, he's in the very top middle bunk. The guy at the very bottom is the guy that's institutionalized. And he gets up and he's like, man, it friggin' stinks in here. And he's like, what the, man, that's you, man, that's you stinking. And the guy's like, what? And he's laughing about it. And the guy below him's like, man, this shit ain't funny, bro. You stink. And he was kicking pretty hard. Yeah. Sweating and shit. And the guy's like, man, I would get you, you know, stabbed in prison, especially you laughing about it. So there was a situation to where this guy was like, you know, they look at it as like, you're disrespecting all of us. Coming in this small enclosed room, smelling like a billy goat, and you think it's funny. So the next day, morning, they're like, you know, you need to get in the shower, take a shower. And he did, but he didn't have any clean clothes to put on because they don't exchange clothes, but I think every 3 days, laundry comes in and you exchange your clothes. So there was one instance, a lot of things that he was saying, you know. So anyway, that was another a situation in there that was kind of comical, but at the same time very serious, because I'm looking at this guy and he's constantly talking about his charges, you know. DUI, he said it took 7 or 8 cops to get him because he was fighting them. He had assault on the police, resisting arrest. They had like 8 or 9 charges on him, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if you're gonna get out of this. Like, he thought that when he went to court, they were gonna drop all the charges. Because,
yeah, he definitely gonna get some time for that assault on the police.
Right, because he believed that when the police saw him, I guess he took off and peeled out in his tires, and then he ran from the police long enough to pull up to a store and get out and go into the store. Well, they saw him driving the car, so when he came out of the store, they're confronting him, and then that's when the confrontation happened. And I'm thinking to myself, look, dude, you possibly could do some time. But he was making light of it, laughing about it, and then we're trying to tell him, hey, that your behavior in jail, we're trying to school you. You know, if you do happen to do some time or end up in 87, to where if you did that shit down in 87, Joe, you already know.
They're gonna beat you up.
They're gonna beat your ass, and they're gonna take your mat and all your belongings, and they're gonna throw them out into the walkway, and they're gonna take you to the next 87 and whatever. Or you might get, you know, the word put out on you. Let's say you order you $30, $40 worth of commissary, some soups or whatever. They're gonna take that shit from you. And there's probably nothing you can do about it because it's gonna be 7 or 8 on 1. And that's the that's just the reality of jail, you know.
That jail is a circus. I want to get to a stopping point here, and relatively briefly, let's talk about the fact that you were in 2D. 2D is maximum security in this jail. It's the only maximum security pod in this jail. The rest of maximum security is down in 87 and on the landing. You're not a violent guy. You didn't have a serious charge, but you end up there probably because of your
history.
You're in and out of jail, and that leads to you ending up in maximum security. When you go to that jail enough, or when you got a long institutional record, you go to maximum security. They don't put you in green band or yellow band. They put you straight to red.
Straight to red. And that's kind of a sad situation, because I have absolutely no violent charges on my record. None. It's all larcenies and a possession and forgeries and stuff like that, all non-violent offenses. But just like the prison time I did previously, they take a non-violent offender and put them around potentially violent people. And that's a situation to where, like we just discussed, I'm not a violent person. I'm not a fighter. I mean, I will fight if I have to, but I'm not the type of person that will just, I'm ready to go at the drop of a hat. And then if you don't fight in certain situations and other inmates look at you as weak, and it's like, okay, we can prey on this guy. We can take his shit or punk him out or, treat him any way we want, because we know he won't fight, or he won't, he's not that way. So, the way the jail does it, who knows? Here I am in a, and in jail, it's not so bad in jail as much as it is, but it's not as bad as when you go to prison, the different levels.
Yeah. Well,
like where I ended up at Sussex 1 for a piece of a razor blade this small, and here I am, a non-violent offender with less than 3 years to serve, and I'm around guys that's gonna never be free again, that don't care to take a life.
Well, look, that's a story for another day.
That's a story for another day.
Richard, I want to go ahead and wrap this up. Look, I appreciate you sharing about these 3 weeks that you just served in this circus-like jail. It's good to see that you're back free again.
Yes.
Tomorrow you got a job interview.
Yes, I do.
So things are starting to look up for you out here. And I'm going to be curious to follow and see where you're going.
Okay, we're going up the hill one step at a time, going up. I just want to say one thing, Joe, real quick, if I can, about jail. All that stuff I talk about, the bad stuff and anything like that, I can't complain about any of that stuff. I can to a point, but I cannot really complain about it, because Richard suffered the consequences of his actions, and I put myself in that environment. Nobody said, Richard, you're going to jail today just because we're putting you in there. I put myself in there, and so I can't complain. And how I react and respond and get along in jail is totally up to me. And I've learned over the years that, hey, don't worry about what people think about you in jail. Worry about your family and your future out of jail. So if I've got to bite my tongue and cop a plea to get through the day, let somebody take my piece of cheese rather than get in a fight and get beat up or beat somebody up and get, that's what I'm saying. So I put myself in there, and it's just about how you adapt to your environment. But always know that Richard's always going to look at the day I get out, and worry about the people that I care about rather than save face in jail, so to speak. If that makes sense to you.
That's a good way to word it. All right, Richard. Appreciate you sharing. I'm going to look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Okay.